Welcome to the Political Oracles. I want to talk about a certain book that was published in 2011. And that book is entitled The Leaderless Revolution by Carne Ross. Was published at a time when global trust in traditional institutions was eroding, or it was eroding, and grassroots movements actually were beginning to reshape. And they were also kind of change in the political discourse, and it was making a message to the world in the early 2000s. So we are talking about global trust. Not only, this is not a Kenyan thing. It is something that started happening some 25 years ago. Is only that the country is manifesting in its political shift. And that is why I'm saying whatever is happening today, it has nothing to do with President Ruto. It has everything to do with the system. And as long as the government and the regime that is in power changes the way they are doing things, Kenya is likely to be among the first culprits in the political shift in the world. And I can tell you, the idea was out of his political disillusionment in a broader sense. And he was once a British diplomat, and he was in many cases involved in high-stakes negotiations like those of countries like Iraq. And he became deeply disenchanted with traditional diplomacy, the way traditional diplomacy was happening, and also the failure of hierarchical government. The government that we have even in Kenya is hierarchical, and there has been a failure in that government. It has not started with President Ruto. It has been there for decades now. And what Kenyans are asking is actually to try to disrupt the status quo, what has been happening, because the structure of hierarchical government no longer helping. They are no longer supporting the new generation. They are no longer functional. And unless the government decides to make those structures functional, this movement is likely to endure for long. And they are not going to finish it by force. At that particular moment, I remember, if you read history well, Carne Ross resigned from the Foreign Office, which was actually his beginning point of what he wanted the world to know. He began immediately advocating for more transparent, for more people-driven and approaches to political change. Many around the world were losing faith in, number one, governments, number two, corporations, and also international bodies. And scandals, wars, economic crisis exposed how often these three institutions on which people had put a lot of trust. In addition to that, Ross calls this a deficit of democracy, where citizens feel powerless and excluded from decisions that affect their lives. Isn't that what is happening in Kenya? Aren't citizens in Kenya feeling excluded from decisions that affect their life? Are citizens in Kenya not feeling powerless? And we need to understand, it has not just begun with the Ruto regime. It began many years ago, and the Kenyans have been complaining. In fact, we are back in 1990s when the so-called young Turks were advocating for multi-party democracy and for change of government. Carne Ross talks about the rise of digital empowerment. By the year 2000, the years we call awakening of digital platforms, they emerged as social media and digital media tools that started empowering ordinary people to organize, number one, number two, to protest, number three, to share information without centralized leadership. And this brought about the issue of control. This shift made it possible for movements like Occupy Wall Street in the United States, the Arab Spring, and also later global climate strikes to emerge. And all these were leaderless, yet they were powerful. So when our Gen Zs in 2024 were talking about we are leaderless, we are stateless, they knew what they were talking about. And even when the government tried to capture the people they thought they were their leaders, it is not working. They thought all opposition in this country is led by opposition. They captured Raila Odinga. It has not helped. They also captured some people, young people whom they thought were the leaders, and they are realizing they are not actually to the point up to this point. So now that they captured them, who is leading the revolution? And that is the question. And that is why there should be an awakening within the government and with the regime that we have, so that they understand the reason as to why the people are protesting. It is not about actually William Ruto regime. It is something that is going to continue even when another president takes over, unless they understand the language of the people and they align themselves with the shifts which are happening in this world. Another thing that was noted by the Leaderless Revolution book is the issue of philosophical shift. Because unless we understand the philosophical turn, we will never know that the people we are talking about, they don't need to wait for government to act. In fact, the people we are having now, they do not want the government to act. They will not wait for you to act. If you don't act, they can build alternatives and alternative systems of cooperation. They can build alternative systems of justice and seeking justice. They can build alternative ways of sustainability from the ground up. So it is either the government takes the lead in doing these things, or the people will do. And when they do it, they will first seek to remove the government. Leaderless revolution is both a personal reckoning, number one, and a manifesto for a new kind of politics. And this new kind of system is the one that trusts ordinary people to shape their own futures without waiting for permission from the top. If the government is not going to be enlightened enough, the people are not going to wait for permission from the top. They will take over and self-govern. But before they do that, they will destroy the structures that exist, so that they get structures that are able to align with their interest. So what can we say to the current government? Why don't you just align yourself with what the people are talking about? Why don't you sit down? Stop protecting and advancing the interests of the elite and start advancing the interests of the people. This is the reason why William Ruto was elected in 2022, because his bottom-up model was aligning with the interests of the people. And they felt that the way he was talking, this is the best person to take this country ahead from 2022 to 2027, 2027 to 2032. But a few months later, the people were already getting disillusioned and they started their movement. And that is why we usually read Niccolo Machiavelli saying, the people have no problem in putting a leader in position, but they have a problem when they realize that the person is coming to mistreat and also to not listen to them. That disillusionment in any state and in any government and any kingdom is when people put a new prince in place and they realize that this person is not interested in what they want. But at the end of it, the people do not ask a lot from the king. what the people ask, that they are not oppressed. And I remember I did a column in 2023 or 2022 when Ruto was sworn into government. And my argument was this: people are not asking for much. What Kenyans were asking when they elected Ruto president was that he should not oppress them. Why can't that sink? That what people are asking in this country is that the president and his government does not oppress them. They were asking for a government that was to come and make their lives easier for them. And that is why, if the president does not pay attention to this, it is not about him. It's a big global shift which is happening, a political, philosophical shift. And unless he finds some ways of containing, and not by force, but through negotiations, he is going to be a pioneer in a movement that is meant to destroy the traditional structures of government. And because this is a revolution, there is nothing he can do against it. He should either align with it or he will be puked out. And that is the political oracle.